Citizen Talks is a podcast series featuring discussions with humanitarians, activists, artists, and changemakers, exploring the global humanitarian issues that shape our society, the world at large. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Citizen Talks. I am your host, Minkailu, and today we are very happy to be joined by Kamal Aljafari, a filmmaker. Kamal, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to talk to you and to explore all the possibilities.
Wonderful. So first things first, for our audience members who may not know much about you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
I'm a filmmaker. I'm visiting here for the second time, actually attending Punto 12. And I showed one of my films yesterday, which was actually part of the focus on Palestine. And I have been working in filmmaking, in both directing and producing since over 20 years now. My new film will be premiering at Locarno Film Festival next month. It will be actually the opening film of the festival. With the film title is With Hassan in Gaza, which is a film actually that I made with footage that I found just recently that I shot myself 24 years ago in Gaza. And it was actually the first thing that I ever shot myself. I was 28 years old and I did this trip in Gaza, and I took these tapes with me when I went to study in Germany, but actually I never looked at them and I never saw them again.
VHS tapes?
No, mini DVs.
Oh,
yeah.
You're going way back.
Yeah, so, and it's really strange because I never saw them all these years and I just discovered them recently. They basically appeared, you know, in this very particular moment in our situation, our existence or non-existence in Palestine,
yeah,
and in Gaza in particular.
Interesting. Okay, so what was kind of, for you, the inciting incident that made you decide, okay, I want to be a filmmaker? And what did that journey look like from that decision to where you are today?
It's a very difficult question to answer because, you know, many things in life, they happen by chance. And I have been, you know, I would say I have been, you know, interested in you know, films. When I was a student, at first I studied actually theater, and I ended up going to the Cinematheque watching films. This is back in Palestine, because all my friends, they had these yearly memberships, and it was pretty cool to go out and, you know, to go to the cinema and all of that. So I did that as well. But I didn't have really an intention to become a filmmaker. And slowly I found myself, you know, caught in this, somehow interest in using film as a tool to express myself. And I wanted to actually leave the country because of the conditions we are in. And for me, really going abroad to study and wanting to study film was a big change in my life, and also very much influenced the kind of films that I ended up making, which I would describe them in general, you know, whatever subject I'm tackling in these films, they are very much films about exile, about the feeling of exile.
Okay. So stylistically, subject matter, exile, stylistically, how would you describe your particular way of filmmaking?
I mean, exilic cinema, in the case of Palestine, it is really something related to the fact that we have lost our country, where we come from. And even when we live in Palestine, we kind of live in exile because we became a minority in our own country. We became guests in our own country. So the feeling of being an immigrant, in fact, which is totally absurd, because even when you live in Palestine, because of the system that has been created there, which is an apartheid system. You don't feel welcome in your own place. So this implies really a certain aesthetic that actually comes with this feeling. For example, many of the early films I made, they were, long shots, slow shots, because what I wanted to do in cinema is really to capture the feeling of the place. And to capture the place, to reclaim the place. And you can only do that if you really working with cinema, which is slow. It takes its time, and it's a form of meditation. And by doing that, you really reclaim the place. And by reclaiming the place, you also narrate your own story. You narrate your own narrative.
Yeah. I've always been interested in this sort of unique ability to take image and evoke feeling, emotion, I'm wondering if there's sort of almost like a formulaic thing that you guys study when you're becoming early filmmakers, when you're in school, etc., where, okay, we know that this type of shot produces this kind of emotion, or if it's just like a natural sort of, it's a human experience thing. It comes from a place of, your own personal experiences out there in the world, and how certain images and sort of visuals that you just came across made you feel. Is that something that's sort of like a fixed kind of thing that is understood, or does it just vary, generally speaking?
I don't think it, it is something that you can study.
Yeah.
Of course, you can learn from, many masters that exist and existed. But finally, to make your own films, you have to rely on your feelings, your interest. What is it that moves you personally?
Yeah.
So there's no really formula how to do things, how long the shot should be. I mean, there are people who, they like long shots because they think, oh, this is so cool aesthetically. I want to be a legend. I make a film of 6 hours long. But this is not the point.
Yeah.
I think you have to really find your own way. And each of us has her own rhythm. And finally, what you have to do is really to stay loyal to who you are.
Yeah.
And what you feel. Now, of course, when you make films, you're not making them just for yourself. I mean, I'm starting. This is the starting point. I'm making the film for myself. But at some point, you evolve, and you start finding the common grounds of communication with the viewer. And it's a process, and it's a lot of work, it's a lot of exercise, and it improves a film after film. This is what I would like to believe.
Yeah.
In a sense that you are more connected in a way, almost on a devotional level, And but there is no rules for that.
Yeah. Okay. So, as you said, the sort of Palestinian narrative is always kind of central to your work. So, if you could share with us why has it been so important for you to share and tell Palestinian stories, and sort of what are your objectives in doing so? What do you hope to achieve with that?
I mean, I come from Palestine, so I mean, it's my story. Finally, it's not something that I'm trying to do. Films that they are representative of a cause, but rather my starting point is always really my own experience, my own relationship to the country where I come from, my own story, finally. And of course, the fact that we are a nation under occupation for we have been under occupation for such a long time. And colonialism does something really terrible to people and to places. And finally, today we reached the stage of this colonial project wanting to implement a final solution by killing everybody.
Yeah.
It's becoming so clear, they are doing that in Gaza now by, starving people, making their life impossible, killing people, destroying the entire place, destroying their memories. Imagine,
Yeah.
people lost everything. They lost their photos, their albums, their documents, their IDs, everything. So this is where, in fact, you ask yourself as a filmmaker, okay, how can we, what is the role that we can play in that? And I think in the case of the Palestinians, we end up always really, even if we make films, we end up as well playing the role of the documentarian.
Yeah.
Because we are being erased, it is so important to film, to document, to keep the memory. And by doing that, in fact, you resist the erasure and you exist.
Yeah.
And the mere fact that actually in the condition we are in, which is really so terrible, and we are speaking about the situation where people have no food and they are being shot at while they are being starved. And we have still to continue to dream, to create, to make films, to make music, to write, to live, because this is exactly the opposite what they want to achieve.
Right. Right.
And yes, it is very difficult. And the only way to generate hope and to defeat this project, in fact, or one way, in the case of cultural workers, is to continue to produce and to create and to communicate our stories to the world and to express ourselves. Because finally, to make films or to create any type of art, it's something very personal. This is something that comes from inside you. You want to do it, I'm not doing it because I feel like, oh, I need to explain to people. No, I'm actually doing it because the starting point is that I have something inside me that I would like to express, to share. And surely it's so important to communicate that with others, with the viewers, with people in general, with people here in Turkey, because this is the nature actually of any art, is a form of communication.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, would you say that, is that how, like if we're talking in the context of art and Palestinian identity, is that how sort of you would define resistance, this preservation, this kind of just sort of trying to maintain this and continue to share it and spread it? Or is there more to it to that? Is there more to that for you?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there's a very long tradition in Palestine and the Palestinian culture in general of poetry, for example. I mean, we have the most important poets. They come from Palestine in the Arabic language. I mean, just to name a few: Mahmoud Darwish, Fadwa Tuqan, and it's a nation which is very resilient, and we carry with us really an entire really history of this place, with different narratives, with all the stories that happen in this place. And this is something that actually the occupiers, they always fail to understand. With all the technology they have, they always underestimate the Palestinians.
Yeah.
But I think really making films, creating, any form of self-expression is resistance to that.
Yeah.
Even if you love, if you write a love story, if you write a love poem, it is a form of resistance.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to, one way, because there are many other ways, you have to fight back to defend yourself. And I think one really important element is culture. And never to give up on that.
Yeah.
this is what keeps us, it keeps our humanity. Because again, the whole idea of the erasure, the genocide, and they claim that we are not human beings, right? I mean, this is what the propaganda is saying, of the Israeli government.
Right.
And creating, it's not that we have to justify ourselves and prove the opposite, but no, we are who we are, and we create, and we will continue to create, despite all.
Yeah. I wonder if you know, I don't know if you've sort of made a lot of films inside Palestine, either in Gaza or the West Bank, but how do you have a sense of how that even happens? Because I know, the Israeli government very actively tries to prevent these kinds of things, as you say. So how are people still able to, because I've seen certainly films coming out of the occupied territory, so it's like, how do people still manage to make these things and get them out to share with the world?
With great difficulties. I mean, the situation has really changed for the worse drastically in the last 2 years, meaning it has become very difficult and dangerous to hold a camera. I mean, we have seen that by the army shooting at journalists. The most famous incident of Shireen Abu Akleh.
Right.
But they do that to everybody. So it became really dangerous to film. So in the last couple of films, Palestinian films that were produced, they were not shot in Palestine. They were shot either in Jordan or in places like Cyprus, simply for that reason, because it was too dangerous to film. Now people find other ways, when you kind of work with low budget or low key productions, so you can manage somehow. But once the production is kind of visible, this is where, in fact, in terms of getting insurance or permissions to shoot, all of that has become really impossible. Yeah. Now, in my case, in the last 4 films that I made, as well for that reason, I have been working mostly with found and archival footage. Yeah. As well because Palestine has become inaccessible. Now, inaccessible not just in terms of not being able to go there, but also there are many things that were erased. So what do you do, like to show a place that no longer exists? Yeah. You have to search and go back, go to look for places in the archives. And this is where I arrived at the term that I used recently, that archives for me are the camera of the dispossessed. And what we have to do is really to collect and to put things together to create our own image.
So I want to caveat this question by saying that from an objective perspective, I personally believe that definitely art has value to humanity in terms of it can shape meaning, it can incite emotion, it can incite entire global movements. But I wonder if you feel that art can have any real impact in a crisis where people are dying every day.
Yeah, I mean, it is really a question that I've been asking myself, in the last 2 years. Yeah, it's a very good question, very difficult to answer. I think art can move people, but it cannot change situations. Despite all the suffering and the horrible images that we keep seeing on our phones every day. Yesterday they killed 100 people. Yeah. Every day they killed entire families. Yesterday they bombed schools. So yeah, of course, you ask yourself, okay, what is my role here? You know, I mean, how much I can, you know, make a difference in what I'm doing. It is a good question. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to say, even in this weak position where we know, in fact, you know, art can, or filmmaking can, or cannot, in fact, change the situation. But what we can do is really to share our emotions, our stories, and to communicate with people. Now, what I have noticed in the last 2 years, I have been traveling a lot to festivals, to, you know, events. The public wants to see that. They have certain emotions and empathy that actually is growing.
Yeah.
Despite, you know, everything is growing. Now, there is a difference between, you know, common people and people in power.
Right.
People in power, these images of dead children does not affect them.
Right.
For them, they're just numbers. They don't even watch them. And even if they watch them, they, you know, I'm speaking in general, you know, generalizing here, but actually if you speak of most Western governments, none of these crimes ever moved them. But when I travel with my films, when I go to film festivals, there's something else happening, where people, in fact, they have their hearts in the right place. And I think it's really important that they have, in fact, you know, Palestinian films, Palestinian stories. It is part of this movement that is growing in the world. That it is incredible. You know, the Palestine solidarity movement in the world, it is an incredible movement.
Yeah.
Lots of young people. I mean, I was just recently in Spain, you know, both in Barcelona and in Madrid. And I was so moved by the solidarity that I found there. And this is something that actually is so essential, because surely they are not stopping it, but they are really doing a lot to put pressure on the governments. And even if on the level of us Palestinians knowing, oh, there are people with us, it makes a huge difference. You know, it gives you a lot of power.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, or fear maybe, though, with the current generation especially, that oftentimes they use the viewing of certain things as an outlet for their frustrations and their sort of feelings about the injustice of a particular situation, without ever actually doing anything about it. You know what I mean? They go to the film, they feel bad, and that feeling bad and seeing them watching, just the watching of the film, makes them feel as if now I've done something, right? And then nothing ever sort of actually happens, or they never take an action in relation to that. You know, do you find that's the case, or do you feel differently about that?
I think, like everything in life, it takes time. I mean, you might watch a film and you're moved and you think about it, but you still go and buy Coca-Cola or go still sit in Starbucks.
Yeah.
Until one day, you know, you understand, no, this is wrong, or someone is telling you, no, this is wrong, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because this is exactly the opposite of what you think, in fact. And so it's very complex, because, you know, we as human beings, we are caught in this, you know, capitalistic way of life that entered everything in our lives.
Yeah.
So, and it's related, you know, buying Coca-Cola today is financing genocide.
Yeah.
And I think many people are understanding that. That's why the boycott movement is so important. And there are companies, whether McDonald's or, you know, Starbucks, they are suffering because of that. Because they were participating directly by giving food for free to the soldiers.
Yeah.
Which is really crazy that
No.
there are companies doing that. You know, why are you doing that while people are being starved? So it is something that, for me, still, despite the fact that we know these people, they care about money, but actually they are so racist, in fact. And they're doing it because it's the Palestinians.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do it with white people.
Yeah.
You know, Palestine made us understand so many things, you know, about humanity, about the situation we're in today in the world. And in that sense, it is really a chance for humanity to change things, you know, to resist, to gain back our humanity. Imagine, we are in a situation where, in fact, the discourse that was brought by the Israelis, that Palestinians are not human beings. I mean, you see politicians from Israel speaking this way, and you think, wow, this is so crazy. This is the way the Nazis were talking.
Yeah.
And they normalize it in their own society, which is something really so, it's bad news, not only for them, of course, for us, because we are subjected to their violence, but it's really bad news for the world.
Yeah. There's a really interesting book that I read when I was younger called Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which basically concludes that oppressed peoples eventually become like their oppressors. And it's a very, I think that Israel's a very interesting case study, to be frank with you, in that regard. But I also want to take a moment here to give a strong encouragement to those people who are involved who are boycotting actively, because I'll tell you, when I first started, I thought I was going to have to walk around outside naked. It was like impossible to find things that were not somehow involved in, you know, the Israeli occupation. It's really insane how they're so deeply tied into the global capitalist economy today. So a lot of respect to everybody who's out there who's able to maintain that, because it is difficult. I will, for this last question, I want to ask you, if you think back across the body of your entire work, which film have you made that meant the most to you, and why?
Yeah, you know, this question, it's very strange for me, because every time I make a new film, I think, oh, this is my favorite film. now the film that I just finished,
like they're like your children.
Exactly, yeah.
No.
So with the title, with Hassan in Gaza, I like this film a lot. And so I think now, oh, this is the best I have made.
Yeah.
And actually, this film is made with material that I filmed before wanting even to become a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I ever filmed, and yeah, so I think, you know, in general, one should always look forward in a way. Yeah, sometimes you look back at what you have written or you know, made, and you think, oh, I could have done it differently. You cannot go back to this. You know, you have to just move on and make new things. And there's no such a thing as a perfect, you know, film or book. I mean, some people claim, yeah, this is perfect, or you know, but everything is a process. You know, you change. You know, what you liked, you know, 10 years ago, is, you know, you wouldn't like today. You know, so it's very dynamic, and I think the best is really to continue. To create, to dream, to communicate with people, with others, and to stay human.
Yeah. So, are there any final thoughts, words that you would like to leave our audience with before we conclude?
To
here?
defend humanity, to defend Palestine.
Those are good ones. Those are good ones. So, for any audience member who wants to follow along with you, see what you're up to, connect with you, where can they find you, online or?
Yeah, online, and the new film with Hassan in Gaza will be showing in many places. We have already lots of selections. We'll premiere in Locarno, and then Toronto Film Festival, New York Film Festival, and it will come eventually to Istanbul.
Okay.
soon.
we'll be looking out for that. Kamal, thank you so much for joining us
you.
here today. We really appreciate you being here. We appreciate your time. And for all of our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Citizen Talks, and we will see you next time.